But we can't talk about some of the aftermath of Super Bowl 54. That's where we begin today, because Kyle Shanahan, coach of the 49ers, had his end-of-season press conference yesterday. And obviously one of the topics, Jimmy Garoppolo, and specifically the question of where Shanahan's support currently is for Garoppolo. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, same as it was the day before the Super Bowl. I mean, there's no different. I mean, he was on his way close to Super Bowl MVP. And we all know we all didn't make those plays at the end, but we made those plays all year, our whole team. That's one of the reasons we were there. And whenever you don't make those plays at the end in a game like that, first and foremost, the quarterback's going to get attacked, and then usually the play caller. So we understand that's how it goes.
You know, I don't know that he would have been the MVP if they hadn't blown the 10-point lead, because I don't think he did enough to really stand out over a Nick Bosa or a Deebo Samuel, who I think would have been a good candidate for MVP if things had held 20-10. But Jimmy G would have been the MVP if he had connected to Emmanuel Sanders when Sanders was open and the ball was in the air. And I thought, hey, this is on target. Shows you what my depth perception is, because he flat out missed him. He connects there. He is the MVP. And the failure to connect there, Big Cat, I've been banging this drum all week. That's the ultimate litmus test. You have that opportunity once, twice, 3 times at the absolute most in your career. You either seize it or you don't. And he didn't. So the criticism is fair. And regardless of anything Kyle Shanahan said, at some level, he's got to look inwardly and say, is this the right guy? Because when those moments come in the biggest possible spots, can I trust him to make the play? Based on what we saw Sunday, the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have been the MVP if the lead had held, because I think you're forgetting Jimmy G was actually very good up until that that fourth quarter. I think, what was he, 19 for 21 or 18 for 21? He was efficient. He was accurate. He had a good game up until that point. It's just what we've been saying about Jimmy G all season long. He's a good quarterback, but can he be a Super Bowl quarterback? And when the pressure got tighter, when everything kind of closed in on him, that's when it feels like it fell apart. And you could see it as soon as the pressure started getting to him, getting home, and that Kansas City front line was getting some pressure, getting their hands up, blocking passes. Everything felt like it fell apart for Jimmy G. And that's the difference between a Super Bowl and not a Super Bowl. And that's the difference between a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, who, when the pressure ramped up and you're in the fourth quarter and you're down 10, he started making plays, and Jimmy G didn't make plays. But, Mike, what is the alternative? We do this all the time with quarterbacks, where we say you got to get rid of him. He can't win a Super Bowl. What is the alternative? The 49ers are set up right now with a great roster to make a run next year again. What is the alternative? Who are they going to bring in that will immediately make them that Super Bowl winning team when they were up 10 points with 7 minutes left to go in the game? I mean, that's as close as you can get to winning a Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this question before I ask you the next question. First question, if Tom Brady had been the quarterback of the 49ers on Sunday, would they have won?
Yeah. Yes. Of course.
Okay. All right. Next question then. Tom, and we talked about this yesterday. If Tom Brady were to call Kyle Shanahan out of the blue, tampering notwithstanding, and say, hey, Kyle, I'd really like to play for my hometown team before I retire. I think I can be the difference and we can win a Super Bowl together. What would Shanahan say? What should he say?
He would say yes, but, Mike, the problem with what you're saying is you have to be 100% sure that that is exactly what's going to happen, because you see it all the time in sports. The most dangerous thing you can do in the free agency period is to start talking to the next guy when you haven't decided what you're doing with the current guy. And if you start talking to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady is using this as leverage to get more money out of New England, or just have New England wine and dine him and say, hey, we love you, Tom. We want you to stay, and we're going to pay you whatever you want. And then, he might not even take that, but just the idea that they'd pay him whatever he wants, maybe that's what he's after. So if you start talking to Tom Brady and you go down that road where you're actively looking for a replacement to Jimmy Garoppolo, and that falls apart, and then you have Jimmy Garoppolo next year, that is where things can get a little risky, little dicey with your football team, when you basically have said, we want to move on with this guy, from this guy, but we can't, because we kind of screwed up the negotiations with the next guy.
Well, let's set that aside. Let's keep it as simple as possible. Brady truthfully says to Shanahan, I'm leaving New England. I'm looking at my next destination, and I want it to be San Francisco. Let's go do this. Your instinct is he'd say yes if you can plug Brady in and pay him what you're going to pay Garoppolo, and they can escape Garoppolo's contract if they move by April 1. They could trade him back to New England if they wanted to. I'm glad you agree with me because Sims didn't. I think that you take Brady for next year and people scoff at this, but they don't understand the connection between Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins. If Cousins doesn't do an extension in Minnesota, then he's the guy you get for 2021 after you win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and he walks off into the sunset with 7.
The Kirk Cousins thing, I don't see it as, I know Kyle Shanahan wants him. I know Kyle Shanahan has coached Kirk Cousins, but I don't see that as some huge upgrade to Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, let's give Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit of credit here. He did have a team that was 13-3 that rolled through the first 2 rounds of playoffs. I know he didn't throw that much, but guess what? It doesn't really matter because he's part of that team, and you can't just take it all away from him. And he also, this was his first full year as a starter because he got injured last year. So if you're assessing Jimmy Garoppolo, are you saying that he's a 100% a finished product? This is exactly what he is. This is his exact ceiling. He will not get any better whatsoever. I'm not ready to say that. So I would take the risk on Jimmy Garoppolo maybe getting better, more confident, finding those moments versus having a known quantity in Kirk Cousins that you might have coached before and thinking you get the most out of, but you know exactly what Kirk Cousins' ceiling is.
Well, and I like that you said that because that leads into what Steve Young, Super Bowl winning quarterback with the 49ers, Hall of Famer, the last time the 49ers climbed the mountain, he was the guy. He was talking at the San Francisco Chronicle recently, and he said that Jimmy doesn't know his ceiling because Kyle doesn't trust him, basically, to find his ceiling. You put him in mothballs in the NFC Championship game. Give this guy a chance to figure out who he is, and along the way you find out who he is, and you can make decisions over the long haul as to what he can do. But, Big Cat, we know what his ceiling isn't. His ceiling isn't delivering the ball in stride accurately to a wide open, not wide open, but he was open. We've seen other quarterbacks make that throw. We've seen other quarterbacks make that throw in Super Bowls. And we saw Jimmy Garoppolo have a chance to do it, and he didn't do it. So his ceiling is somewhere below that, right?
You're boiling his ceiling down to one single throw. Like if Jimmy Garoppolo has that throw again, he can't make that throw? Is that what you're saying? He will never make that throw?
I'm betting the under.
That's crazy. But that's crazy to say that he's never going to make that throw.
No. Well, I mean, how many chances are you going to have in your lifetime to even make that throw? My point is this.
Of course.
Those opportunities are very few and very far between, and it is the ultimate litmus test for a quarterback. You either make the throw or you don't, with the season riding on it. Season's riding. He had plenty of time. He was able to set up and throw. You either deliver that ball accurately, which is your job. I mean, we say all the time about kickers, you got one job, make the kick. For a quarterback who's in a clean pocket and his guy's open, you make that throw. You make that throw. And he didn't. That's his ceiling. He had a chance to win a championship, and he didn't make it.
You're still boiling it all down to one throw his entire career. I think that's a little crazy.
I am.
That's fine. Not. But to say he could never make that throw, and I actually agree with the Kyle Shanahan not trusting him enough. The biggest problem I had with Kyle Shanahan was not the play calling at the end of the game. It was the fact that he just basically, with a minute and a half and 3 timeouts left in the first half, said, let's go in the locker room. Happy we're 10-10 against the Chiefs offense that was going to explode at some point. That was where the trust in Jimmy G was like non-existent. That's the message you're sending to your quarterback saying, yeah, you know what? I'd rather not risk you throwing an interception here, and try to get more points in a game that you know you're going to need points eventually. Like, the Chiefs offense has done this time and time again where they will explode at any moment and, boom, put 21 on you in the fourth quarter. You know you're not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs with field goals. Yet you still said 10-10, that's fine, let's go in the locker room. That was the moment where Kyle Shanahan said, I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo, but to boil it all down to one single throw and say he will never, ever, ever make that throw, I think that's foolish. And that's why you're sitting with me right now and not sitting in a front office for an NFL team.
I don't want to be in a front office. You get fired from the front office.
You
don't get fired when you don't get
into work. You
don't get fired. You don't get fired when you own your own media company. Let me say this though. Two things. First, exactly. It's the big cat jacket shirt. It's making me feel tough. It's making me feel big today. I'm ready to flex a little bit like you were all last week after you got all your big money from Penn National. All right, here's are you up to 200,000 an episode now for Pardon My Take?
I can't see you. I don't even know what you're doing right now. I can't see you. Your joke has really affected this show.
Steve Young also said that at the end of the first half, what's the message you're sending to the quarterback? And he put himself in Jimmy Garoppolo's shoes and said, what are you saying to me when you're not letting me try to score with the ball in my hands? Tick, 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 tick. I mean, it makes sense that you could look at that and say, maybe Kyle doesn't really trust Jimmy G. And to put the final point on that, the fact that he didn't make the throw with the season on the line shows why maybe he doesn't trust Jimmy G. Now, you mentioned letting the clock run. Before we take our break, here's Kyle Shanahan from yesterday. When he was asked, would you change your play calling at the end of the first half? Here's what he said.
Felt extremely good with how we went. Not using the timeout there was a no-brainer. But then trying to work the clock. If we would have got an explosive run on the first one, then it would have been a whole different deal. But we got a 2.5-yard run. And so the whole goal was to not let them call a timeout there. So you hurry to the line to act like you're going, but then you don't. So you can ensure that Mahomes won't have an opportunity. And then we run a ball, and then we make them use one of their timeouts. Now it's third down, and at least we've made them use one of their timeouts. We've taken enough time off that if we don't get this, it's going to be harder. But it's still a lot of pressure. You got to move the chains there. They brought a corner blitz. Jeff did an awesome job. We got a big play, and ended up having an opportunity to score if we don't get the offensive PI.
I mean, that's all well and good, but I can't get past the image of John Lynch up in the suite doing this, right? Doing this. Take the time out. And Lynch said yesterday, Parag Marathe, the executive savant who negotiates contracts and also does some clock management stuff for the 49ers, Lynch was asking him, should we take a time out here? So I'm assuming that Marathe's saying yes, otherwise Lynch isn't doing this. Big Cat, can you see me doing that? You can't see me doing
No, I can't.
I'm doing the same thing Lynch was doing. Yeah. All right,
so
anyway, I think that some of the criticism of Kyle Shanahan from Super Bowl 54 isn't fair, but the handling at the end of the first half, I think, falls into the category of fair criticism, along with running it on 2nd and 5, up 3 points with about 6 minutes left. Those two things, I think, are fair criticism.
Yeah, that's playing scared. I mean, listening to Kyle Shanahan talk there, you're basically saying to yourself, we're scared of Patrick Mahomes, which I would understand being scared of Patrick Mahomes, but the only way to beat the Chiefs is to go and be aggressive offensively. I mean, that first half kind of told the story where you had Andy Reid going for it twice on 4th down and Kyle Shanahan running out the clock with 3 timeouts and a minute and a half left. That told you who wanted to go seize the day, take that opportunity, and win the Super Bowl.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.